Do you ever wonder why your hamstrings feel like they're going to tear off their bones when you're sprinting? It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what fitness level you're at. Even the best athletes in the world will tear their hamstrings.
If this sounds like you, then maybe you have a weak link in your posterior chain. If this doesn't happen that often, then maybe it's not a problem. But what if I told you there's an excellent way to prevent your hamstrings from tearing in the first place? In the next few minutes, I'm going to give you a complete step by step guide how to prevent hamstring injuries, how to build really strong hamstrings, as well as making them faster so you could sprint and elevate your game to the next level. In the last 16 years, I've trained over 2,000 athletes. This is the exact framework I use to train my clients. I've used this on beginners, intermediate, and professional athletes. Now, if you're looking for a step by step free program in how to build a solid foundation to bulletproof your hamstrings, the link is in the description below. But if you want to learn how to do this yourself, then you could continue watching the video.
Now, before I give you the solution without context, you need to learn why the hamstrings are doing this in the first place. If you feel the hamstring tweaks getting more frequent, there's one of two things at play here. Number one, your hamstring is doing too much work compared to your other muscles. Number two, your hamstring is not strong enough for what you're asking it to do. In both scenarios, the hamstrings are taking on more than they can handle. In scenario number one, it's like your hamstring is the only person in a group project that is doing the assignment. Your glutes, your calves, your quads, your shins, and your hip flexor muscles are all slacking. Scenario number two, your glutes, calves, quads, shins, and hip flexors have an attack level of 100, but your hamstring has an attack level of 70. In this video, I'm going to lay out 5 things. Number one, why the hamstrings pull when they tear. Number two, where the hamstrings fit in the sprinting movement. Number three, the solution to scenario number one, which is overworked hamstrings. Number four, the solution to scenario number two, which is underdeveloped hamstrings. And finally, I'm going to give you a bonus solution. This will bulletproof your hamstrings if the first two solutions don't work for you or you just find them too difficult to execute.
The reason why you pull your hamstrings at top speed is because your leg is swinging forward like a whip. Right before your foot lands, your hamstrings are lengthened and it has to stop the lower leg. Now, this stopping should be done under your hips. If you reach too far, you stretch the hamstring band and you yank it. That's why the hamstring is most vulnerable late in the swing.
That's why this fix isn't just one exercise, it's better position, timing, and capacity. Every solution that I give you is going to address one or two of these. It's not going to address it all completely. You have to put the solutions together on your own. And of course, I'll show you how to do that too. So now we know why the hamstrings pull at top speed. Now let's discuss what the hamstrings do during the sprint movement. Remember scenario number one, the hamstrings being overworked? Let's solve that problem by looking at the surrounding musculature that we've established are slackers. I'm going to zero in on 3 main reasons why your hamstrings are forced to pick up the slack. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm assuming you're properly hydrated, you've got all your electrolytes balanced, and you're not super fatigued or exhausted. So if you're fresh and your body physiology is okay, here are the reasons why your hamstrings might be pulling or straining. Reason number one is you're not using your glutes and your hip extension. Here's the anatomy of the hamstrings. See how they basically originate from your booty? They lie right underneath the glutes. In this picture, the dot is where your hamstrings originate from. When you're doing hip extension, it should be primarily your glutes. But if your butt sucks, your hamstrings take over. If you're not sure what I mean about hip extension, here's how it looks like. This movement right here is hip extension. This movement right here is hip extension. Although one of them uses mostly hamstrings, the other one uses mostly glutes. This last one is more obvious. You're actually using more of your low back to extend the hip. Feel free to pause and rewind. Can you spot the difference?
You see, all three of those movements were technically hip extension, but only one of them activated my glutes. Your glutes are literally the largest muscle in the body. So if you're not using the largest muscle in your body to do arguably the most explosive movement that you could do naturally, then you shouldn't be surprised as to why your hamstrings are pulling all the time. So you're probably wondering how to solve this problem. Well, when performing hip extension, we're going to take a play out of the bodybuilding handbook. We're going to develop a mind-muscle connection with the glutes. Now, the real key is to feel the glutes in every hip extension within a well-balanced program. You want to use closed chain compound movements, open chain compound movements, and maybe a combination of both.
Here's one simple habit I'm getting my athletes to do if they're having difficulty developing a mind muscle connection with the glutes. I get them to perform a light hip extension movement, whether it's kickbacks, hip bridges, or any form of horizontal hinging. 3 sets of over 20 reps. The first set is to try and get the hamstring tired enough to actually feel the glutes take over. The second set is to get the glutes to do most of the movement. And finally, the third set, you want to feel the glutes in its entirety. If you keep practicing at this, you'll develop a good mind muscle connection with the glutes.
Now, if you already have a mind muscle connection with the glutes and you still keep pulling your hamstrings when you run, then you've got another problem at play over here. This brings me to reason number 2. Your calves aren't being utilized. More specifically, you're not allowing your calves to do their jobs. Now, there are a couple of fixes here. The obvious one is to work out your calf muscles more.
Calf raises and pogos are an excellent way to solve this problem. But there's an even more simple way that you could fix this that doesn't involve any gym equipment, and you could do this immediately. Let me explain. Here is me walking. Here is me jogging. Here is me sprinting. Did you pay attention to how my foot hit the ground? When you walk, your heel should touch the ground first. When you jog, your forefoot and heel touch down onto the ground at the same time. When you sprint, your forefoot should only be touching the ground. So here's how some of you become your own worst enemy. You land on your heels when you sprint. You see, running is a form of hip extension. So yes, you do hip extension when you're deadlifting, when you're squatting, or when you're doing hip thrusts. But sprinting isn't squatting, deadlifting, or hip thrusting. You see, when you lift weights, you plant your heels onto the ground. But if you plant your heels while you sprint, it's almost like you're shoving your femur into your hips. In other words, you're basically shoving your upper thigh bone into your crotch.
So now that you know you need your glutes and your calves to do their jobs, reason number 3, your stride is out of sync. You see, you need the proper forefoot strike in the proper position relative to the hips. This way your glutes can extend the hips in the most powerful position. The question is, how do you do all of that in a split second? It's simple. You want the foot to land directly under your hip. Let's recall when I showed you how the hamstrings pull when they land in front of the hips. Now let's fix that by examining the fastest man alive. Here's a slow motion clip of Usain Bolt running. See how he lands on his forefoot and then immediately extends his hips with his glutes? That's what you should be doing. You could correct this with agility hurdles, wickets, or small cones that you could just run over. Big shout out to Lifestyle Athletics for this awesome drill that you could try with agility hurdles. If you don't do it at the right distance, you'll see the foot lands in front instead of directly underneath. Now feel free to pause and have a quick look at this diagram. It shows exactly where you should be landing versus where you're actually landing. Now let's go back to scenario number 2, underdeveloped hamstrings. Let's build up the hamstrings specifically for sprinting ability.
But before I show you the exercises, there's 2 things you need to understand. Number 1 is hamstring anatomy, where they originate and insert into the bones across the skeleton, as well as their function. And number 2, the difference between building hamstrings for bodybuilders versus building hamstrings for athletes. Let's start with hamstring anatomy. Here's a picture of the back of your leg. Here are the 4 hamstring muscles specifically. 3 of them originate at the hips, meaning they flex when you kick your leg back, and they stretch when you push your hips back. All 4 of them flex the knee. That means that they bring the heel of your foot towards your butt. Now that you know where the hamstrings are and what they do, it's time to move on to the next thing. The difference, as well as the similarities between bodybuilding, and athleticism. Because I want to be clear here, there definitely is some overlap. If you're a bodybuilder, your hamstrings are going to be stronger and more explosive as a byproduct of getting bigger. And if you're an athlete, your hamstrings are going to get bigger as a byproduct of getting stronger and more explosive. This is the part where a lot of strength coaches will show you stiff leg or Romanian deadlift variations, as well as hamstring curl variations. Now, obviously, these exercises help, but they're not painting the entire picture. It's like a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, but you've completed about 900 of them. You've done most of the work, but that last 100 is going to push you over the edge. I'm going to give you 3 exercises that will bridge the gap between absolute hamstring strength and absolute hamstring speed. These are exercises that allow you to be more explosive in a controlled setting so it prevents injuries. Exercise number 1, stability ball hamstring curls. Both single leg and double leg versions are perfect because you can feel the stretch at the hips, the kickback at the top, as well as the final knee flexion at the end. You feel all the functions on the hamstrings in one single rep of the movement. Exercise number 2, plyometric hip bridges. This exercise teaches your fast twitch hamstring fibers to work with your glutes and your calves in an explosive way, similar to sprinting. However, unlike sprinting, you take a split second to calculate your stride power and how high you want to thrust your hip in the air before making the switch. You give yourself instant feedback on how to develop a mind muscle connection with your hamstrings, your glutes, and your calves within your sprinting stride. And finally, exercise number 3, we got stability ball butt kicks. This exercise requires a partner to help you out. You're basically working towards creating the same quick tempo rhythm as if you were sprinting. The stability ball will provide you with some bounce back resistance to get your hamstrings accustomed to redirecting the force from the stability ball. For any athlete that I coach, I have to make a fitness plan that incorporates these 3 variations of hamstring movements over the course of weeks or even months. You can't just do these exercises in one workout or a single day because you're going to risk injuries or overtraining. Sequencing these exercises in the right order within a workout, within a single week, or within a single phase is the key to setting up the right foundation for building bulletproof hamstrings. If you take all this information and create a solid program for your sport, then that's awesome. But if you're struggling to figure out which order you should do these exercises, I've got a 5-day free fit foundation formula that could steer you in the right direction. In less than a week, you'll have more mobility, better quality strides, quicker feet that will elevate your game to the next level. Link is in the description below. Go check it out. It's completely free. Now back to the video.
Okay, so we're finally here. It's time to give you the bonus solution so that you don't tweak your hamstrings when you're running at full force. But first, here's a quick recap.
Okay, let's go back to the whiteboard. We've already covered the solutions to scenario number 1 and the solution to scenario number 2. But did you remember there was a common denominator? The common denominator is that the hamstrings were taking on more than they could handle. Now, the solution isn't just training the hamstrings more or lifting heavier weights with the hamstrings. You need to train the hamstrings smart. Now, the smart way to train them in this case is to train all of the strength curves. If programming the solution in both those first 2 scenarios that I showed you is a little too complicated, I'm going to try to attempt to simplify it. For this bonus solution, try not to think of it as a one size fit all. Try to think of it more as like a one solution solves most problems sort of a situation, I guess. Now, the bonus solution is to train every single strength curve that you could hit within the hamstring muscle. Every muscle has strength curves. In some exercises, the muscle is doing more work in the lengthened position, and in other exercises, the muscle is doing more work in the shortened position or the flex position. Take these 2 bicep curls, for example. This rep is going to be the hardest in this position, while this rep is going to be the hardest at this position. Both are bicep curls, but the difficulty changes depending on where the load is stressed at the most. Your hamstrings are like the biceps of the legs, and your leg biceps have four strength curves. Strength curve number one is the standing hinge, like the RDLs and the good mornings. Your hamstrings are fully stretched and working the hardest at the bottom of this movement. Strength curve number two, like leg curls at the peak curl position, or lying band resisted curls, or standing hamstring curl machines. Your hamstrings are working hardest at the peak contraction position. The strength curve number three, you got leg curls at the peak stretch position, such as the lying hamstring curl machine or the lying dumbbell hamstring curls, where the hardest part of the movement is near your knees, where the leg is straight, but the hamstring technically isn't fully stretched. And then finally, we got strength curve number four, where you're doing the leg curls in a hip hinge position, such as the seated hamstring curl machine or explosive butt kicks. Your hamstrings are slightly stretched at the top while you're flexing at the knee and producing a lot of force.
Combining all four of these strength curves is a surefire way to bulletproof your hamstrings. But now you're probably wondering how to put it all together in a cohesive fitness plan that makes sense. Because you got to incorporate all the other muscles in the legs, such as your glutes, your quads, your hip flexors, your shins, and your calves. Well, if you click right here, you could utilize some of these single leg exercises for your own inspiration to put in a complete fitness plan together. So, provided that I've already uploaded this video, click right here and I'll see you there.